Alright, what's going on, you guys? Brian back here with another recap video. This time we're recapping two different wrestling episodes. Number one, Impact Wrestling. I watched it on their Twitch channel. And the second one is going to be Reality of Wrestling. Um, Reality of Wrestling is a company run by Booker T, running out of the Houston, Texas area. So I figured I'd give one episode of their show a look-see to, just to see what good competitors they have as far as in-ring talent. And I watched this week's episode, so let's get into it. Also, for those of you that may not have seen it, today was also a WWE Superstar Spectacle, where it was on the WWE Network. I know it was not advertised. They really didn't seem like they advertised it very much on Raw last night. But here is a quick rundown for anyone that did not see the show as well. So we had this is for WWE Superstar Spectacle. Finn Balor was in action. He defeated, and I'm sorry if I'm butchering these names, Guru Raj. Finn Balor won that one. In an 8-man tag, Rey Mysterio, Giant Zanjeer, Dilsher Shinki, and Ricochet defeated Cesaro, King Corbin, Shinsuke Nakamura, and Dolph Ziggler. AJ Styles defeated Jeet Rama, Serena Sandhu teamed up with one half of the WWE Women's Tag Team Champions, Charlotte Flair, to defeat Natalya and Bayley. I don't know why I just said that. Rinku and Sarav, they teamed up with the WWE Champion Drew McIntyre to defeat in a 6-man tag Sunil and Samir Singh and Jinder Mahal. So those were the matches for today's Superstar Spectacle for WWE. On Impact, we opened up with a brawl that stemmed from a promo by Impact World Champion Rich Swann, where he called out Tommy Dreamer. He then challenged Dreamer to an Impact World Championship match where he'll be defending the title against Dreamer coming up on February 13th at No Surrender for Tommy Dreamer's 50th birthday. This promo would be interrupted by Chris Bay, Sami Callihan, Moose. They would go after Moose, Bay, and Callahan would go after Swann and Dreamer until Willie Mack made the save. Then Ken Shamrock would get involved. He would go and help out Callahan, Moose, and Bay. This would lead to Swann, Dreamer, and Mack wanting a match against the four of them. And they went to Scott D'Amore. Scott D'Amore said, "You can have the match, but I have something. It seems to me that you're missing a fourth person, and I've got the person for you." And there was a lot of mystery as to who that person was, and we got our answer in a little bit in the main event. We also saw Matt Cardona and Josh Alexander defeat Madman Fulton and Ace Austin. Next week, Josh Alexander goes one-on-one with Madman Fulton. That happens next week. We had Rohit Raju, who gets a opportunity at the X Division champion TJP in a non-title match. He cut a promo on this week's episode talking to someone backstage. They didn't show who it was, but he was saying that let's just go out there next week and get back what belongs to him, that being Rohit. So that's a huge match for next week. There was another paid ad from AEW's Tony Schiavone and President Tony Khan. We had a Brian Myers, Josh Alexander, and Matt Cardona backstage segment where basically Myers shrugged off Matt Cardona. Of course, Myers and Cardona, former tag team partners when they were in WWE, but now anyone that thinks that they're going to get together in Impact Wrestling to form a team, it ain't going to happen. So then Brian Myers, he defeated Eddie Edwards via disqualification when Eddie lost it and went after Myers' eye and then bit and was biting him, so the referee called for the bell in disqualification. Then we had a cannot speak today, I'm sorry guys. We had a Fire and Flava backstage segment where they're talking about their Fire and Flava Fest, that being Tasha Steelz and Kiera Hogan, the Impact Knockout Tag Team Champions. They would be interrupted by Johnny Swinger. Then we had a Private Party and Matt Hardy segment where Matt Hardy was basically telling Private Party that not only did they have a huge opportunity coming up on February 13th at No Surrender against the Good Brothers for the Impact World Tag Team Championships, but they also have an opportunity of becoming number one contenders in a tag team battle royal coming up on Dynamite, I believe, next week, or I think it's next week, to become the number one contenders to the AEW World Tag Team titles currently held by the Young Bucks. So, and Matt Hardy was just basically telling them that, how important it is for them to win because it means more money for him and all this different stuff. Then we had Rosemary defeating Tenille Dashwood. We had a Triple XL, that being Larry D and AC Romero backstage segment with Rosemary and Crazy Steve. Basically, Larry D got out of jail and then he confronted Rosemary, who apparently casted a spell on him, and that caused something to happen involving the shooting of Johnny Bravo during his wedding ceremony. So then we had another backstage segment with Fire and Flava, Swinger, Johnny Bravo, and Fallah Bahh, where Fallah Bahh was not invited to the Fire and Flava Fest. Then we had Deonna Purrazzo, who is the Knockouts champion, Kimber Lee, and Susan talking about what Deonna accomplished at Hard to Kill, where she defeated Taya Valkyrie. And then Kimber Lee brought up how her and Susan defeated Jazz and Jordynne Grace last week. They would be confronted by Jordynne Grace and Jazz. Then Jordynne challenged one of them to a match, and Susan accepted. So next week it's going to be Susan versus Jordynne Grace, and that was pretty much it for that. Then we had the Fire and Flava Fest, which ended with Havoc and Nevaeh going after Tasha Steelz and Kiera Hogan. Then we had a Chris Sabin and James Storm backstage segment where they're talking about wanting the Impact World Tag Team Championships. Then we had another segment involving the Knockout Tag Team Champions where they got confronted by a referee who said that none of the things that they had planned for the fest came to fruition and wanted a refund. And they basically blew them off, saying, you're not getting a refund. Then we had Joe Doring defeating Cousin Jake. Afterwards, Eric Young, Joe Doring, and Diener were going to do the same thing to Cousin Jake that they did to Rhino last week. And Eric Young, when Joe Doring was about to jump off the rope onto Cousin Jake and to injure his leg, that had a chair on it, Eric Young stopped him and told him to go, and then threw down a Violent by Design towel to Cousin Jake, and before yelling, this world doesn't belong to you, it belongs to us, and all this other stuff. Then in the main event, it was Tommy Dreamer, Willie Mack, the Impact World Champion Rich Swann, and apparently Trey Miguel made is back with Impact Wrestling. They defeated Sami Callihan, Ken Shamrock, Chris Bay, and TNA World Heavyweight Champion Moose in an 8-man tag, which I think is a good thing for Trey Miguel to stay with Impact Wrestling because he's very talented, and I know that a lot of people were thinking that when they had announced that the Rascals were leaving Impact Wrestling, that it was going to be all three of them, and we saw Wes Lee and Nash Carter, who were Dez and Wentz. They went to NXT, and now we know that Trey Miguel is going to be staying with Impact Wrestling, which is, I think it's a great thing. Like I said, Trey, very talented, and now we get to see what he brings as far as how far he can go on his own. So now that concludes Impact Wrestling, and then I just finished watching Reality of Wrestling. Here were some of the matches that took place on that episode on their YouTube channel. Zach Mason defeated Obi of Renegades of Wrestling faction. We heard from the new Reality of Wrestling World Champion Cameron Cole. There was a triple threat match involving the women's division of Reality of Wrestling, where Rachel Rose defeated Danny B and Jenna Lane in a triple threat match. There was a Renegades of Wrestling backstage segment where they talked about wanting the Reality of Wrestling tag team titles. We heard from the Latin heartthrob Gino Medina in an interview, and then in the main event, Gino Medina defeated Nathan Bradley, and that thus concludes Reality of Wrestling, the episode for this week, episode 299. So pretty much that about wraps it up. This has been my recaps of Impact Wrestling and Reality of Wrestling. So with that being said, if you guys checked out either episodes of Impact Wrestling or Reality of Wrestling on tonight's episodes, let me know what you guys thought of them in the comments below. As always, I am Brian, and I will see you next time.